Welcome to The Explainer. So we all know that mastering a second language takes a massive amount of time and energy, right? But you've probably noticed that fluency feels like an absolute breeze for some people, while for others it feels like this insurmountable mountain. Is it a special gene? Some kind of photographic memory? Well, today we're going to unpack the fascinating science behind what actually drives us to fluency.
To really understand this, we have to go back to a question posed back in 1959 by two pioneering researchers, Robert Gardner and Wallace Lambert. They literally asked, how is it that some people can learn a foreign language quickly and expertly, while others are utter failures? Ouch, it's quite a harsh way to put it, honestly. But this is the psychological mystery that has puzzled educators and linguists for over 6 decades. They realized pretty early on that intelligence and aptitude just weren't the whole story. The missing ingredient was something much deeper.
Section 1. The Language Learning Mystery. Moving right into Section 2. Extrinsic, intrinsic, and integrative motivation.
Okay, so to solve this mystery, scientists had to look at what actually gets us off the couch. Specifically, when we're faced with the incredibly long-term task of memorizing thousands of new words and weird grammar rules. For decades, research just focused on splitting human motivation into these rigid behavioral categories. You're probably familiar with the classic carrot and stick models, right? There's extrinsic motivation, driven by outward rewards like passing an exam or getting into college. And then there's intrinsic motivation, where you're learning the language just because you find the process inherently fun and satisfying.
But when it came specifically to language learning, Gardner and Lambert dropped a real game changer. They introduced this concept called integrative motivation. This is defined as a learner's positive attitudes towards and deep interest in the country, culture, or people of the target language. For a really long time, the prevailing wisdom in the field was that this specific type of motivation was absolutely essential. The belief was basically, hey, if you don't genuinely want to affiliate with the native speakers and integrate into their culture, you simply aren't going to succeed.
And this idea formed the backbone of the dominant socio-educational model for years. Researchers were constantly comparing integrative motivation, that heartfelt desire to connect with the target culture, against what they called instrumental motivation. Instrumental motivation is all about striving for utilitarian goals, like you're learning the language to get a promotion at work, secure a specific job, or just pass a basic requirement. For decades, the debate just raged on about which path yielded better, more fluent speakers.
All right, Section 3, the cultural distance problem.
Now, as the world got more interconnected, a massive plot twist popped up in the research. Those original theories just assumed you already had some kind of exposure or connection to a culture. But what happens when the language comes from a place you literally know nothing about? Researchers dubbed this the terra incognita problem, the challenge of learning the language of a geographically and culturally unknown land. To explore this, we can look at a really fascinating 2006 study in Malaysia. They examined university students learning Russian, which was a language separated from them by a huge geographical and cultural distance.
When researchers surveyed these students on day 1, they found practically zero traces of integrative motivation. And I mean, that makes total sense, right? Because you can't be motivated to join a culture you don't understand. The students' answers were mostly just neutral facts about geography, like, oh, it's a cold country, or completely wrong historical beliefs. They had virtually no direct cultural connection to drive them forward. But here's where the power of education comes in, and it's super cool. Over 2 semesters, the teachers implemented a specific pedagogical intervention. They intentionally introduced culturally entertaining texts, authentic materials, and engaging facts about Russian society into every single lesson. And the results were just striking. By the post-intervention survey, 17% of their total motivation had become what researchers called Russia-inspired. That neutral, boring view of geography actually transformed into a genuine desire to learn about the culture. And remarkably, rather than wanting to connect with native Russians, they developed this strong desire to use the language to communicate with their own Malaysian peers who are studying abroad. The classroom itself had successfully engineered the motivation.
Which brings us to Section 4, the motivational self-system. This realization that motivation isn't just a fixed trait you're born with, but something that can be cultivated and engineered, really ushered in the modern era of theory. You can see this chronological evolution pretty clearly in the literature. We moved from the social-psychological period of the mid-century to the cognitive-situated period of the 90s, all the way to today's process-oriented period. Led by scholars like Zoltan Dernier, researchers now view motivation not as a static label, but as a highly dynamic, ever-changing force. It's fluid.
And the absolute crown jewel of this modern era is the concept of the ideal L2 self. This theory suggests that motivation is driven by an individual's ideally imagined future self. It's this incredibly vivid vision you hold in your mind of yourself confidently and fluently speaking that second language in the future. According to this framework, learners put in the hard work because they are actively trying to reduce the discrepancies between their current struggling status and this powerful aspirational vision of who they want to become.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the clash between two totally different future visions. On one side, you have the ideal L2 self. This is promotional. It pulls you forward. It focuses entirely on achieving your personal visions, your dreams, and your own unique definition of success. On the flip side is the O2 L2 self. This one is preventional. It essentially pushes you out of fear. It focuses on avoiding negative outcomes, dodging failure, and fulfilling obligations like strict parental expectations. One is built on passion, and the other is built entirely on pressure.
To see exactly how these two cells actually battle it out in the real world, we can look at a 2018 case study involving 56 Saudi university students who were learning English in the United States. Now, in the academic world, there's often been this cultural stereotype that students from Asian or Middle Eastern backgrounds are primarily driven by that O2 L2 self. Specifically, the assumption is that they're motivated by immense parental pressure and heavy societal expectations. So, the researchers set out to test if this assumption was actually true.
And this cold hard data completely busts that preconceived notion. On a 6-point scale, the O to L2 self, specifically that subcategory of parental expectations, actually scored the absolute lowest of all the motivational variables, sitting at just 3.37. The highest scoring variable? The ideal L2 self, coming in at a massive 4.75. These students weren't just grinding away at English grammar because their families told them to. No way. They were doing it because they held a powerful, internal, idealized vision of themselves successfully navigating their future and their careers using the language.
Section 5. Visualizing your ideal self.
So, how can you actually apply this science to your own language journey? Well, it all starts with this number right here, 0.68. In that same Saudi study, researchers found a 0.68 correlation between a student's ideal L2 self and their intended effort. Now, intended effort is basically the gritty, day-to-day energy and time a learner is actually willing to invest in studying. A correlation of 0.68 is highly significant in this field. It proves a direct, undeniable statistical link between what you imagine in your head and the physical work you actually do.
When we map this out, we see that exact positive correlation beautifully. As the strength and clarity of your ideal L2 self increases, the intended effort directly increases right along with it. The science tells us something really profound here. Vividly visualizing an idealized future self directly increases the actual physical energy you invest in learning. It's not just daydreaming, guys. It is a measurable, scientific driver of tangible hard work.
So, here are the practical takeaways to supercharge your motivation. First things first, you must encourage constant visualization of your ideal L2 self. Don't just bury your head in verb conjugations. Regularly imagine yourself confidently ordering a meal, closing a business deal, or making friends in that language. Emphasize to yourself how fluent and proficient you will become. Next, exactly like we saw in the Malaysia study, incorporate engaging socio-cultural elements into your routines. Read authentic articles, listen to the music, explore the culture, make it real. Finally, focus all your energy on closing the gap between the person you are right now and that incredible future vision. Motivation isn't just forcing discipline, it's active imagination and cultivating a mental environment that protects your effort when things inevitably get tough.
I'm going to wrap up this explainer with a question for you to really think about right now. Close your eyes for just a second and think about the language you're trying to master. Who is the future you that speaks this language fluently? Where are they? Who are they talking to? And most importantly, what are they saying? Build that vivid vision in your mind, hold on to it tightly, and let it drive you all the way to fluency. Keep learning, keep visualizing, and thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer.